These are the ruins of the Trosky castle today, a pile of rocks sitting on top of two massive stone pillars in the middle of the Czech countryside. It's hard to believe that this pile of rocks was once one of the most terrifying fortresses in all of Central Europe. So let's turn back time and look at how and why this castle was built on top of a literal volcano. But before we get into the castle itself, we need to look into what it's sitting on top of. Millions of years ago, this place was an active volcano. When it erupted, the lava cooled and hardened into two massive pillars of rock. Over time, the softer rock around them eroded away, leaving behind these tall and narrow towers, rising out of the ground like horns. Devil's horns, actually. That's what the locals called them. And the Celts who lived in this region around the 4th century BC treated the entire area around them as cursed and tied to the underworld. You can see the Twin Peaks from almost anywhere in the surrounding countryside. They dominate the horizon. And in the late 1300s, one man looked up at those two impossible rock towers and decided he was going to build a castle on them. His name was Čeněk of Wartenberg. He came from the Markvartites family, one of the most powerful noble dynasties in northern Bohemia. These weren't minor lords, living in wooden halls. The Wartenbergs controlled vast territories across the region, owned multiple castles, and wielded serious political influence at the royal court. And sometime between 1380 and 1390, Čeněk made the decision that must have made his builders want to quit their jobs on the spot. It was time to start building his new fortress on top of those volcanic rocks. His reasoning for this was straightforward, and it's the same reason behind almost every major construction project in the Middle Ages: defense. The rock was too steep to climb, too hard to tunnel through, and too high to attack with siege equipment. If you could get a castle built up there, you'd have a stronghold that was untouchable. But getting up there to even build it was already a serious problem. Every stone, every timber, and every barrel of mortar had to be carried up near vertical walls of rock. Workers had to carve footholds and pathways into the stone just to reach the building sites, because there was no gentle slopes and no natural ramps to get up there. The construction took roughly 5 to 10 years, and it bankrupted Čeněk in the process. By the early 1390s, he was drowning in debt, so he was forced to hand over Trosky and his other estates to King Venceslas IV. Čeněk never managed to repay that debt, later passing away without ever getting his castle back. The layout of Trosky was based entirely on the rocks it was built on. The two peaks sit roughly 100 meters apart, with a dip of lower ground between them, and Čeněk built a tower on each one. The lower peak, standing 47 meters high, was called Baba, which means an old woman. And the name fits. The rock is wider, rougher, and almost hunched over compared to the other tower. On top of Baba sat a hexagonal two-story building split into 4 separate living chambers. It wasn't optimized for just living, but for defense, with thick walls designed to absorb potential enemy bombardment. The taller peak, which is 57 meters high, was called Pana, meaning the maiden. Slim, sharp, and elegant, rising higher than anything else on the horizon. On top of Pana stood a rectangular palace with 3 floors, and at its very summit, a chapel. Just imagine attending church services at the top of a volcanic tower, hundreds of feet above the countryside, with the wind howling past you and the landscape stretching out beneath you in every direction. Beneath, the ridge connecting the two towers held most of the castle. Palaces, a courtyard, storage, and even a working blacksmith's workshop that stayed in use well into the 1600s. But living up there was not easy. The wind at that altitude was constant, and there was no natural water source on the rock itself, so water had to be collected from rain or hauled up from below. And every supply delivery meant making the journey carrying goods up the unforgivingly steep rock. But back to the towers. People only lived on the upper floors here, because the lower levels sat directly against the cold rock face, making it a perfect temperature for storage and not so much for living. To further fortify the castle, the whole complex was wrapped in 3 rings of fortified walls, some up to 15 meters high and 2 meters thick. But the real secret of Trosky wasn't above ground. It was below. Carved into the softer ground below the stone towers was a labyrinth of tunnels. According to legend, these passages were carved at Čeněk's own command shortly after 1380. The story goes that Čeněk used prisoners to carve out corridors filled with traps and hidden passages. If the legends are true, the tunnels would have served two crucial purposes: secret resupply routes into the castle during sieges and access to underground ponds that would have been the castle's only reliable water supply. In 1931, a researcher named Dr. Antonín Pařízek led an expedition into the tunnels from a cave called Sklepy, located about 500 meters from the castle. His team found corridors clearly shaped and widened by human hands, with floors partly paved with flat stone slabs. This wasn't natural erosion. Someone built this. But the team couldn't get far. After 500 years of neglect, sections of the tunnel had collapsed and passages were blocked by rubble. Nobody has managed to fully map the entire underground network and confirm whether the passages lead all the way up into the castle's own cellars. Whether or not they did, the tunnels clearly exist in some form, and if the old stories are to be believed, they played a crucial role in what happened next. After Čeněk lost the castle to the king in the early 1390s, it was sold to a man named Otto III of Bergau. Otto was no small figure. He had served as the Burgrave of Prague, which was the highest administrative official in the kingdom, appointed directly by the king. He held Trosky for about 15 years, until his death in 1414, and his son inherited the castle. That's when the story gets real interesting. Otto IV publicly presented himself as a devout Catholic, but the man was solely driven by greed, driving him to do some crazy things. But before we get to that, let me give some context of the situation. In 1415, something happened that threw the entire region into chaos. A Czech priest named Jan Hus had been preaching against corruption in the Catholic Church, demanding reforms that the Church refused to accept. He was invited to the Council of Constance in modern-day Germany to defend his beliefs. He was promised safe passage by the Holy Roman Emperor himself, but instead he was arrested and burned at the stake. His execution caused an explosion of rage across Bohemia. Tens of thousands of his followers, known as the Hussites, took up arms against the Catholic establishment. It was the beginning of a religious war that would tear the region apart for the next 15 years. And it was in this chaos that Otto IV saw his opportunity. While the country was burning, he raided the Opatovice monastery, one of the oldest and most treasured religious sites in Bohemia, a place that had been accumulating gold, silver, and sacred relics through centuries of donations. He looted the monastery and brought everything back to Trosky. According to legend, Otto hid the monastery's treasure somewhere deep within the castle's underground cellars, behind the massive boulders so heavy that no one could move it. Over time, the loose rock and debris covered the entrance completely, sealing the passage shut. The treasure of Opatovice has never been found, and it's presumably still down there in Trosky, somewhere in those tunnels, sealed behind a boulder that hasn't been moved in over 600 years. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is the treasure still buried under Trosky, or did someone quietly find it centuries ago and keep their mouth shut ever since? Now, the Hussite Wars that followed Jan Hus's execution didn't just affect Trosky. They consumed the entire kingdom of Bohemia, which is roughly what we'd now call the Czech Republic. On one side were the Hussites, a massive religious rebel movement made up of tens of thousands of common people, peasants, townspeople, and minor nobles. On the other side were the Catholic loyalists backed by the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, who launched 5 separate crusades into Bohemia trying to crush the uprising. The Hussites, led by the legendary one-eyed general Jan Žižka, defeated every single one, using revolutionary tactics like mobile wagon fortresses and pioneering the effective use of early firearms in battle. Trosky, under Catholic ownership, found itself right in the middle of this war. It became a key stronghold for the Catholic side, part of the chain of fortresses that included nearby castles like Kost, Bezdiez, and Ralsko. These castles formed a defensive line that kept supply routes and communication open between Bohemia and Catholic allied cities to the north, across what is now the German border. Despite the Hussite armies sweeping across the countryside and burning everything in their path, Trosky was never conquered by force. In 1428, the Hussites laid siege to the castle, but 3 rings of walls, near vertical rock on every approach, and those secret resupply tunnels underneath made the fortress impossible to crack. The siege failed and the Hussites moved on. After the Hussite fighting died down in the mid-1430s, the castle fell into the hands of someone worse than any organized army, a robber knight named Krzysztof Szów, along with his companion Švejkar. They moved into Trosky and turned it into a base of operations for terrorizing the entire countryside. These weren't soldiers fighting for a cause. They were bandits with a castle. They raided villages, extorted peasants, and then used the fortress's position to hide and avoid any consequences. It took a whole coalition to stop them. Various cities and towns banded together with local forces to lay siege to the castle, a campaign that dragged on for roughly 3 years. The defenders were reportedly able to resupply through those underground tunnels. The attackers eventually discovered and cut off the tunnel supply routes. By 1444, Trosky's forces were finally starved out and defeated. But even then, the castle's walls were never breached by assault. The bandits lost because their supply lines were cut, not because anyone broke through the gates. 2 decades later, in 1469, Trosky faced its most powerful enemy yet. The castle's owner at the time, Jan Zajíc, had joined the rebel alliance against the ruler of Bohemia. The king sent a royal army to deal with the rebels, and they besieged Trosky along with several other castles in the region. Even with the full weight of the royal army pressing on the walls, the garrison held out for months. In August 1469, they eventually negotiated a surrender. The garrison walked out on agreed terms. They were not stormed. They chose to give up, and that distinction matters, because in its entire history, across every siege, every war, every conflict, nobody ever took Trosky by force. After the turbulent 1400s, Trosky passed through the hands of several noble families, but each one cared less and less about the old fortress on the rock. By the mid-1500s, the castle was no longer a noble residence. The lords preferred more comfortable estates nearby, like Hrubaskala and Kost, where you didn't have to climb a volcanic rock tower just to get to your bedroom. So Trosky was managed by estate officials and slowly fell into neglect. In the 1620s, Central Europe was being consumed by the 30 Years' War, and Bohemia was right in the middle of it, so the war reached Trosky as well. By this point, the castle had been neglected for nearly a century. There was no lord living there, no proper garrison manning the walls, just estate officials looking after a crumbling property. So when Swedish troops swept through Bohemia, they didn't even need to besiege Trosky. They simply walked in and took it. The fortress that no army had ever managed to conquer in its prime fell without a fight. Through the 30 Years' War, the castle changed hands repeatedly as armies moved back and forth across the countryside. By 1648, in the final year of the war, the Habsburg Imperial Army made a calculated decision. They couldn't afford to leave Trosky standing as a potential stronghold for their enemies, so they burnt it all down. Completely. Every wooden structure, every roof beam, every floor tile was consumed by the fire. What was left behind is the ruin that we see today. No one ever rebuilt, and no one ever moved back in. The castle that had stood unconquered for over 2 centuries was finally destroyed. And there's one last tragic detail that makes this even worse. It's said that there was one painting showing what the Trosky castle looked like in its prime, an illustration that captured the full glory of the fortress as it actually appeared. Well, that image was stolen by the Swedish army during the war and taken back to Sweden. No one knows what happened to it after that, and it's presumed as lost, which means we don't have a single confirmed picture of the complete castle. Everything we know about how it looked comes from archaeological reconstruction, written accounts, and educated guesses. The real image of the mighty castle is lost forever. But Trosky isn't the only place erased from history. If you like this video, check out a reconstruction of the last 24 hours in Pompeii.